Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is More on the Road with Bernard for the third, presented to you by More and More Sports Management. Nothing but more is what we're all about. Thank you for joining us this lovely day. We got a great show lined up for you today. Now, I know we deal with dabble with a lot of sports, but sports grounded. I want to thank those that helped me form this show. So before we get started, definitely give those solutions to those salute and congrats and many thanks to those that really helped make this show what it is today. First and foremost, we think more and more sports management, nothing but more. Looking for management service, contract negotiations, event planning, sponsorship, sales, and more. Give them a call at 601-260-3509 or log on to www.mms-management.com and they can provide you with more information about how you could be a part of the organization as well. They can be a part of your organization also. Talking Sports Live every Wednesday. Jamie Horton, Rob J, Larry Nix, Ed Bishop, and myself join us every Wednesday from 6 to 7 p.m. live from Full Moon Barbecue, 1935 Madison, Mississippi, 1935 Main Street, Madison, Mississippi. I don't know if that ever been 1935 Madison, but hey, it is what it is. 1935 Main Street in Madison, Mississippi for Full Moon Barbecue or via social media, Facebook, YouTube. Also join us every Sunday evening at 10 p.m. on the Lou 35 to watch it via TV. So that we're moving up on TV now. Speaking of the best little pork house in Mississippi, Full Moon Barbecue, 1935 Main Street, Madison, Mississippi, fullmoonbbq.com. Give them a call to place an order. Reach them at 601-853-1712 or contact their catering for 10 meals or 10 people or more. 601-466-7713. If you mention that you saw it on More on the Road, they may throw you a cookie or so. I'm not sure. But you can try it and see what happens. Also, thanks to Moni's Dessert Boutique. Cakes, muffin, cookies, oh my. Look her up. Give her a call at 646-926-9240 or Purple Velvet Bakery at yahoo.com. Locate them on Facebook as well as Instagram. Hillcrest Christian School, one faith, one family, one sound, one future, excuse me. 4060 South Sarah Road in Jackson, Mississippi, 601-372-0149, or log on to hillcrestchristian.org to schedule a tour, the test, and take a look and see what exciting things they have to offer at the small institution over in South Jackson. Also, want to say that we're partnered with GoFan for our different events. So log on. Want to thank GoFan for being a part of all of our different events that we're hosting this upcoming year and years to come. Defining Moments with Larry Dix every Tuesday and Thursday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Tune in Facebook Live or social media to tune into Defining Moment. He has some exciting news. Definitely log on to his channel to see much more about what he's doing with Defining Moment. Now, like I was stating, we was talking about basketball, sports. This is what we definitely found it on. But joining me today is a coach whom I've had an opportunity to see in action. I saw it at the Coliseum, and I know that's where all the coaches would love for everybody to see them is at the Coliseum. I didn't see her follow throughout the season, but I had an opportunity to see her at the Coliseum, and you can say she was putting on the show. I don't know if she was showing out because there's a big crowd or what. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but I'm gonna allow her to say that. Joining me today is Coach Denise Faulkner of coachingfaulkner.com. Locate her and find out information about what she has going on. I know that she has some camps going on, but I know we're going to talk about that later. How you doing today, Coach Faulkner?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Just enjoying another beautiful day in the state of Mississippi. So, Coach,
Oh,
like
it
I
is.
stated, like I stated, now I saw you. I first met you when you was at the Coliseum, when you was at Meridian, and you won. You hoisted the gold ball at the end of the time that I saw you. Now, I know that was not the start of your coaching career. Where did the
Mm.
coaching career begin for you to develop to be a champion as you are?
I started at Heidelberg High School, actually.
Heidelberg, the Oilers.
Yes. Yes,
That
Heidelberg
as
Oilers.
as a player and as a coach, or
Yes,
just
I
as
graduated from Heidelberg a very long time ago, and I coached there for 5 years, right before I went to Meridian, actually.
all right. Now, how does it feel? Sometimes I know being a former student athlete myself. How did it feel going back home to coaching on the stumping grounds where you began your career as a player, which I know you was probably that probably established your coaching career also because you look like you played guard, and as a guard, you got to control everybody, put everybody where they need to be. So, how was that going back to coach where you own your own stumping ground?
Well, I mean, it's always great going back home. You know everybody. And I mean, it was a very smooth transition because even though I didn't know the students, I knew most of all the parents and the grandparents or whatever. So it made it really, really easy to coach those kids. Who are you gonna tell on me, when you get mad at me?
And
I
and
went
I
I literally went to high school with your parents. So
and with that, how does that feel? Though you know the parents, and some of the parents know how you are, and even the grandparents because the grandparents saw you play. How did
right.
that make you feel though about discipline wise?
I mean, it was a piece of cake. It's kind of like, back in the day, when it took a village,
Uh
you didn't
huh.
have to worry about people going back, telling on you, and the parents coming to you, being upset. And it kind of takes it back to that era, when parents know you, they trust you, and so it made it a very smooth transition for me.
Now I
I
know.
really enjoyed my Heidelberg days.
Oh. Now, as a former athlete, a parent, and a current coach, how did you feel about when your parents try to come and tell you how to coach the team, especially when you was at Heidelberg because they know you, and sometimes they feel that they can come talk to you. How did that make you feel, especially at
Well,
Heidelberg?
actually, you know what? To be honest, I never really had that problem. I didn't. I don't know exactly what it was. Now, I mean, they're fans, so I'm sure they talked among each other, but
Uh-huh.
I never had the problem of parents coming to me. And I didn't have that problem at Heidelberg. I didn't have that problem at Meridian. So it's just one of those things I've been blessed to do because I know a lot of coaches have to deal with that. But I can honestly say I haven't really had that problem.
So you set the standards at the beginning of the season, parents. I'm coaching your child. Don't come in here bother me. If you want your child to do this way, don't put them on my team. So
No, I think it was that trust
okay.
thing. And I always have a really good relationship with my players, so I don't know, it just kind of goes back to that trust thing. And I don't know, maybe that was it, but no, I didn't. All of my parents have always had my number. I've always had an open door policy. And they've called me, mainly about something that's going on with the child or something like that. But never really about playing time or anything like that, because like I said, it was that trust thing. We had that relationship there, and they just didn't believe that I would mistreat their kids in any way. And I think that's what it boils down to. Players are I mean, parents are timid. They want to know. They're constantly wanting to make sure that their players or their daughters are not being mistreated. And that's just something that they didn't have to worry about with me.
Now, when leaving your hometown, going to Meridian, I know that was a not saying it was a big jump, but there was a big jump coming from 3A, 4A school,
It was
two
two
A.
A. It was,
Okay,
yes, it was two
then
A
they're
going
going
to
to jump into
six
6A.
A, and it was a huge jump. Yes, and it was the hardest decision I had to make.
And why is that? Leaving home or facing a bigger challenge?
No, it was leaving home, leaving Heidelberg. That's where I had my roots and that's where I was grounded. So to leave, like I said, I had that relationship and I had never thought about leaving. And when I made the decision, I cried, they cried, it was just I was just devastated. So it was definitely one of the hardest decisions, that I've had to make. But I talked to one of my mentor coaches and they gave me some really good advice. And they told me with my personality, I tend to build those relationships with my players. And I mean, it's just the name of the game as coaches. We move from school to school. Um, and every year you're going to have those kids that you don't want to leave. So it's just kind of something that, you have to get used to. And I mean, we see it every year when kids graduate
Uh-huh.
out, we have they leave us. So it's definitely something you have to get used to. But Heidelberg was the first time that I had to do that. And so it was definitely devastating. It was the hardest decision I had to
But not,
make from a coaching
with
standpoint.
changing programs like that, what sometimes do you kind of weigh out the pros and cons? Not trying to, again, I know in detail some of the decisions what coaches make, but in situations like that, what pros and cons did you kind of weigh? Did you go in front of a scale and like the pros on this side, the cons on this side? Which way? What weighed it out? What factor uh, made you make that decision of leaving Heidelberg going to Meridian?
Well, we had a lot of success at Heidelberg, and I think it was more so of just wanting to know if what you were doing at that level was actually good enough. Because at the time, 6A was the highest. They go up to
Yeah,
7A now, but 6A was the highest class. And so, it was just exciting to get to know. I mean, is it good enough? I know it's good enough at the 2A level, but let's go and see if it's good enough at the 6A level.
and what challenges did you face going into okay coming from? I know some of those opponents across on the other side of the score table like who she thinks she is coming from this small 2A school coming up here with the big dogs. Did you feel intimidated,
Well,
especially I know in some of those 6A programs that you probably faced like Starkville, Clinton, Tupelo, some of those big.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I wouldn't use the word intimidated, but you're coming into it knowing those are really good programs. I kind of got my feet wet in it at Heidelberg because even though we were 2A, when it came to playing out of district, we played a lot of the 4, 5, and 6A schools. So but we didn't get a chance to play all of them. And I know it was a lot of them, a lot of really, really good ones left out there. You still had your Olive
yeah.
Branch, still had Starkville. So it was a lot still left out there. But it was more so exciting to me. I didn't get intimidated, and I'm not trying to say arrogant or anything, but basketball is how I felt. So, but yeah.
I'm glad you stated that and how some people look at what I look at from 1A, 2A, 3A, all the way up to 7A, especially in high school. It's all about numbers. It's not about the quality and the quantity of the
Hmm.
play. It's about the numbers. When you was at Heidelberg, you
Hmm.
probably had on your team probably two or three that can go play anywhere, but you had a roster. You had a
Right.
roster of 12 to 15. Out of
Hmm.
those, the remaining outside of two or three that they can go play anywhere, you had to really coach them to play, especially when you're playing against
Right.
some tougher opponent that had the resources. Now I know Heidelberg has
Hmm.
a whole lot of resources, but it's not the resources that you would prefer to have because you had the back roads, you had the cornfields, you had the hay barns and the haystacks and go plow the field. That was they said that old cock that what is it cock not cockstrong that old natural strength. That's what you all had
Oh yeah.
instead of in the weight rooms
Oh
lifting
yes.
weights and lifting plates and stuff. So the resource that you had at Heidelberg, what did you do different from when you went to Meridian with the resources?
Right. Well, when I went to Meridian, we actually had two gyms. So, you didn't have to worry about, having to wait until the guys were done practicing or having to flip flop and, things like that. So it made the transition a lot easier. So we had our own weight room at Meridian because there was two weight rooms. And so there was a men's weight room and there was a women's weight room. So, or girls and boys weight room. So it actually made things a lot smoother, actually. And I get, the numbers are a lot larger, but with me moving to Meridian, I know Starkville's numbers were a lot larger than Heidelberg's, but now, I'm in Meridian, my numbers are just as large. So my pool, I'm on an equal playing field with them now. But as far as the resources, I mean, Meridian is amazing. I remember nicknaming it Meridian University while I was there, because the resources were just amazing for a high school.
And with that, how do you feel about the? I said not trying to degrade any of the small town in the population. It's based off of the population and I mean what the tax dollars can do in those particular areas. How do you feel
Right.
about what you said that I'm seeing all these other schools that we play against? Why can't we get these particular type of resources to help our student athletes? What is something that you feel that can be done, especially with the dispersion of the funds? I know they get into the state senate now about they don't have a budget. right now for this upcoming year. They haven't come up on a
Yeah.
budget. Things like that. How do you feel about that affecting what you're trying to do, especially when you're at Heidelberg?
Well, I think the thing is, it kind of goes back to picking your battles, you know, and that's just not something us as coaches, have the power to control. So as a coach, your mindset, you can't focus on what you don't have. You have to focus on what you do have available. And being a coach is all about making adjustments. It's just like a roster. You're not going to always have a fully stocked roster. This past season at Jones, I played over half my season without a single post player. And you just kind of have to play the cards that you're dealt. And to be honest with you, it's not that much different. You just have to improvise. Like we didn't have a weight room at Heidelberg per se, but we had a couple of weights, that I was able to slide into the locker room and, put into a corner. And so we were able to get it done. It makes it a little bit, I wouldn't say harder, but it's not quite as convenient. But as far as the dollars, some smaller schools just don't have the funds for it. So I think as coaches, we can kind of control the use of the resources that we do have better than we can control, bringing in those new
Okay.
resources.
Again, this is More on the Road with Bernard Moore III, presented to you by More and More Sports Management. We're here talking with Coach Denisha Faulkner. Uh, like I said, when I first met her, she was hosting the gold ball. So I know she's the. I didn't want to interrupt her from that moment, and celebration and stuff, because I know when they're doing that, they got thousands of people coming into them. Some people that they don't know, supporters of the different schools, like, wow, where did you come from? Trying to get attention, get a hug, and touch the gold ball. But coach, what would you say? I know that said you've been in the coaching game now, so now, as I said, you got some years up under your belt right now. What would you say to
Uh-huh.
a new up and coming coach, though, especially not trying to degrade Heidelberg, because I've seen Heidelberg at the Coliseum multiple times for the past few years.
Oh
Not
yes.
just one, just
We
said
were
not just
there,
one side. It
yes.
was boys and girls. Um, what would you tell
Yes.
an up and coming coach about how to handle with lack of resources when you're developing especially a small program?
Hmm. Just be creative. A lot of times, there are ways that we can kind of maneuver. Like I said, you may not have a weight room, but you know most schools have a weight room. It's not the issue that they don't have a weight room. It's that they may have one small weight room, and they have football. They have multiple sports using it, and so it kind of certain sports kind of get pushed down. But just make the use of it. I mean, because you still have full body weights. So my advice would really, and I hate to sound so cliche and repetitive, but my honest advice really would be to make the best of what you have and always focus on what you have more so of what you don't have. And I think if the focus is there, you'll find a way to make things happen.
And now you see, I know you see some of those the Cinderella stories. Some coaches they come out of bring programs out of nowhere. They were the program of the backwood. Then they get this energetic coach in to come in and change the thing. And then just like you say, they find creative ways. And then sometime, now again, not trying to call any names in anybody. So don't think that I'm trying to get you to tear anybody down. That sometimes the administration or even other coaches will throw
Mm.
stumbling blocks in your path because they see you moving
Oh
and
yes.
they start throwing stumbling blocks in your path. What can you advise a coach, especially a young coach, how to maneuver through those stumbling blocks?
Oh yes. Just have to understand that there's different types of leadership. And it's almost like a player. I've always told my players, if you are a player, you find a way to play for any coaching style. And administration, that those are like our coaches. And as a coach, we have to figure out how to maneuver in as many different coaching styles or administrative styles or leadership styles as possible, because otherwise we're going to limit ourselves and say, okay, we can only work under this type of leadership, or we can only work under that type of leadership. And it gets tough now. And I'm not saying that it's always easy. it really gets tough because you're absolutely right to say that sometimes administrators and I wouldn't say that they intentionally do it, but they can place a lot of stumbling blocks, in the way. And at the end of the day, as coaches, we're just trying to we have the same goal. We're just trying to help students, just like administration is trying to help. But a lot of people, they just don't really, you don't always have the full support, from the administration, and that really hurts the program though. So, but I mean, we have to, as coaches, we have to take the same advice we would give our players. You're either going to figure it out or find an excuse, for it not. And my advice is always to figure it out.
Yeah, and I like what you said. Though I always tell my players, and I tell my son, said, don't make an excuse, just make an adjustment. Because
Yes.
as a player, no, as a coach, you watch film. Are you a film junkie?
What? Yes. You have to
Okay,
be.
yeah. Now, I there's no secret about the way my coaching style is. I tell my players, I say each week or each game we're doing something different. Because the coaches, I know that we play against, they watch film, and I don't like to
Mhm,
give you the same look every time. So I'm gonna try
mhm,
something different every week. Now it's going, I'm not trying to confuse my players, but we're gonna
mhm.
tweak it just a little bit compared to what we did the last game. And so I tell my players, said, if you watch film and they do this, don't make an excuse. Oh, I can't get the shot up, or I can't make that pass because it's too crowded. I said, just make an adjustment. Because
Right.
if they see as a coach, if you see your opponent doing this as a coach, you're gonna strategically try to figure out a way to stop it. So don't get frustrated if they're not allowing you to your shooter to shoot. Make an adjustment. And I
Right.
always have to tell my players. I tell my sons them that a lot. But as one player said, just make an adjustment. Don't make any excuse. Now, with you being a film junkie, do you kind of push it off on your players also to watch film as you do, or do you say, "Hey, I want y'all to watch film and study, and come back and give me an assessment of what you watch"?
Oh no, they do have to watch film. But you have to go a little bit further than just telling them to watch film. I do what I call skull study. Skull study is just us in the film room together, and it's almost like being in the classroom. It's a planned lesson, where we have specific clips and everything. I mean, there's an agenda. It's almost like a lesson plan, for it or whatever. So, but yeah, I mean, they have access to film to continue to watch. We do encourage them to watch it on their own, and they take notes and we collaborate that way. But you have to go a little bit further than that. It has to be something that's mandated.
Now, with that, do you have your players to say, "I want you to specifically watch this player or this player," or also do you have your players go back and watch yourself play and grade your teammates,
It
stuff like that? 'Cause
varies. It varies. It just depends on the situation at hand or whatever the team needs at the time. Sometimes, players do need to go back and watch themselves. Sometimes assistant coaches will pull clips and bring players in for one-on-one film evaluation. Like if it's some type of reads or whatever that they've been working on in player development, and we notice in games they're still not making the right reads or something like that. We'll easily just pull those clips and pull that player in and show them. And a lot of times, when they see themselves on film, they're like, why did I do that? I should have done this. And we're like, yeah, this is exactly what I was thinking when you did it. But yeah, so it's really good. And I think that is an under-taught skill, because one thing I found that a lot of players, they don't know how to watch film. So you kind of have to teach them how to watch and analyze. Even when they watch a basketball game, they're just watching the game. They're not really analyzing the game.
yeah, I know I do that with my son. And sometimes a guy make a move, I pause the TV. I love now you can pause live TV. Say, "Hey, come in, come look at this. You see why they did that? Oh yeah, yeah." Now, when watching film, well, when watching film of your players, I always tell my players that there are three different views. There's a sideline view from my standpoint. There's an
Hmm.
on the court view from your standpoint. Then there's the camera view that's up in the sky
Hmm.
that's watching everything. And
Right.
they make a play, they do something, and they come back with an excuse. Well, nah, coach, it looked like this, and then go back and watch it on film. Say, you sure that happened like that? Oh, well, now I see it now, coach. How do you feel about when you correct your players, but then they say they saw something different, but then when we sit back and watch film, it was what you saw, and as on
Hmm.
the flip side, and sometimes it's what they saw. How you kind of handle situations like that?
Do you mean like sometimes like if I'm wrong when we
Yeah,
go back and they were
if
right?
you wrong, you were
And they
wrong
were,
on like
oh,
I
it
said.
happens. It happens all the time because the game is so fast. And sometimes, I'm looking at one thing and I catch something else out of my peripheral. But
Uh-huh.
I always get my bench involved. A lot of times I turn around, it can be the last person on the bench. I'm like, hey, whose help was that? And I get furious if they can't answer that question. But that's something that we do in practice. They know if I ask you a question, you need to know it. Um, and it's always exciting, especially at the high school level, because if I turn around and I ask a player, "Hey, whose help was that?" and they tell me, "Hey, that was Sarah Sue's help right there. She was stuck over there. She was doing this," and they can tell me exactly what she was supposed to do. Hey, you go get her. So it was a way for them to earn some extra playing time because I know you know what you're doing. You just told me, what she did wrong. But then sometimes, like I said, we don't see everything, and I have no problem coming back saying, "Oh, that was my bad. I thought this happened, but you were right. I apologize for that. You were absolutely right. I'm guilty of I've chewed a kid out in a game before. I mean, subbed them out, chewed them out, didn't want to hear what they had to say because I know what I saw. And when I got the film, I was like, I thought I saw it, but and I have no problem, going back apologizing the next day, and it kind of helps build that relationship with the players too,
Uh-huh.
because I'm human too. I'm not always right.
Now let's go back to your Heidelberg days.
Hmm.
Now you knew how you were on the court.
Hmm.
You saying, I bet you saying that you were the stuff. I'm throwing an air quotes up, but I'm just teasing.
Oh
So
no.
you saying that you were the stuff on the court. You graduated, went played collegiate ball, played some bricks, all the good stuff, and then you got into coaching, and you offered you given a job at Heidelberg. You're excited, yes, and then you get in there and you start coaching. You see some players look like, why did they do that? That's not how you're supposed to do that. And you want to go out there and show them how it's done because
Hmm.
that's the way that you did it when you played. And the coach had to correct you a couple times. And so with your playing and your coach correcting you, and now you know how to do a little bit better. How does it make you feel sometimes when you see players, you know they had the potential to do it, but then they don't do it the way that you see is best for them to do it?
Uh, well, you're gonna definitely see that a lot. Because the whole realm of if things are changing, with kids not playing outside anymore, just the athleticism is different. So a lot of times I have found that certain things, depending on what it is, they can't do it that way. Sometimes players, especially at the high school level, just don't have the fine motor skills to do it that way. But it just boils down to player development. And as coaching, just kind of evaluating your players and finding out what's best for them, what's the best fit for them. It's more than one way to skin a cat. And that's one of the things that I had to learn early in my coaching years, because like you said, I expected everybody to do things exactly the way I did it. And it just doesn't always work out that way.
Yeah, I know I'm kind of frustrated. I mean, I'm guilty of that as well.
Yeah.
Have your players ever challenged you? But to my coach, you still can't do that. You can't do that, coach.
Oh, I can't. I'm old now. They know I can't. I always keep a young, fresh assistant coach though.
Not coach. Now you know you're not gonna let them. I know they. I'm still getting called out right now, and but I just been having an issue with my foot, and so that's why I said let me get my foot together. I get out there, and I tell them I said one of my former players, he is 6'7", 6'8", and I'm
Hmm.
6 feet. He's like, Coach, I dog you. I said I wouldn't even let you touch the ball. I said I know how to beat you. Don't even let you touch the ball. He said,
Yeah.
Coach, come on. I said, let me get my foot together. I'll be out there. And sometimes, even as the coaches, we get out there and play with the guys. I be telling them, I don't play hard. I play smart. I can go out there and be just as quiet as can be, but I bet you I make a greater impact than you do. You shooting all them shots. We're talking about coach. I play defense. I know how to control the game, the tempo of the game. I don't have to
Yeah.
score to make an impact. And
Yeah.
so they trying to call me out like that. Say, yeah, but just let me get my foot together. I said, I'll be back out there. But coach, still get out there and run up and down the court with him. Like, now, again, don't go back to your high school days where you trying to put up 40, 30, 30, 40 points now. Like I put
Well,
together.
I wouldn't say that I've had any to call me out, but sometimes you have to get in there when you have like a little knucklehead, somebody that's hard headed.
Yeah.
So I know I once coached this kid that she had a tendency of when she shoot the ball. I mean, she was an amazing shooter, but whenever she would shoot the ball, she would bring the
Uh-huh.
ball all the way down below her waist before she brings it up into her pocket. And I could not get her out of it for the life of me. And just one day, and shoot around before practice, I just said, well, let me go out here and show her what I'm talking about. So I got out there and, I chunked her the ball and I was going to play defense on her, and I told her, you won't get a shot off, you know. And she's like, Coach, you old, this and that or whatever. And so every time she would get ready to go into her shot, I would never close out on her up top. I would just keep my hand down kind of low where I knew she would bring her ball, and I would strip it from her every time. And she got a little frustrated, and I said, I've been telling you, if my old tail, if I was about 40 at the time, so if I can get a hand on your ball, I know that 17-year-old is gonna, she's not gonna let you even get a look at the rim. So, it was kind of fun and funny there, and she got the idea then.
Yeah, and see, that's what I try to explain to, especially to my players, especially with their shot. Someone like said, confident, their stomach and shooting. It's like, dude, come on now, you can't shoot like that. Say you playing to get somebody that's taller, they're gonna have spalling all across your forehead. I said, but sometimes I try to get out there. I show the, especially I work with a lot of the post players, and I tell them about certain moves that they make. I was like, man, I would kill you in a post. I wouldn't let you even get off because of the way that you play. But
Well, when
I'm
you
out
were
there.
coming up, when you were
Like,
coming up, did you ever go to like a park or a rec center or whatever and play like against
yeah,
older people when you were young? See, they don't
that's
do
that's
that now.
that's all I had. My
Yeah.
I grew up in West Jackson. We had the West Side Community Center. And so in order for me to play, guess what? I had to go out there and play against the older kids or
Right,
the high
right.
school
And they were
guys.
not gonna let you get that shot up from your
Oh
stomach,
nah.
So you would have
Nah.
learned that you would have broke that habit way back then. But now they don't get a chance to break that habit until late high school years, if they're
Yeah.
even able to break it then. Because there are no older people that they're playing. These kids, they're in their rooms on Instagram and Snapchat and TikTok.
Yeah, I had to fuss with my son and them about that stuff too, man. Dude, go outside and work on it. And it's my
Oh,
dad. I saw
believe
this
me.
video on Instagram. I'm gonna try this. Like, oh god. I was like, but hey, that's what they do now.
Yeah,
Not
that's that
not coach,
Instagram
but
ball.
but they're not showing. They'll show you the list stuff on Instagram, but they're not showing you what they're doing off the camera. Out there really working hard and busting their butt.
Right, right.
Now, I want to talk to you about women's sports. I know
Hmm.
this has been an issue. I see women's sport growing, especially with the WNBA, all the different excitement players, or with
Hmm.
Angel Reese or Caitlin Clark, Asia Wilson, or what they're doing. Now the issue coming to about compensation. Do you feel that they should be on the same playing field as some of the NBA players, or even give them at least close to something to what they're
You
doing?
mean
Because
professional level? Like, are you talking
yes,
about professional level? Definitely. I
because
mean, I know because the male professional sports are probably so far ahead right now. Um, it may not be equal, but I definitely think it should be. The gap should be starting to close.
and like I said, I'm all for women's sports as well because they are upset. Sometimes I go to a women game, they're more exciting than the men game because
Hmm.
there is very competitive instead of chauvinism. Instead of
Right.
the women are not trying to showboat, they're trying to win and compete.
Hmm.
Now, Caitlin Clark was the number one pick of the WNBA last year, and based off what they said, her salary is 90,000. You got the 12th guy on the bench; he making that in a month.
Hmm.
And so, yes, there is some separation. That everybody's looking. I know I hear people saying that the investment is not there in WNBA. The market is not there in the WNBA for women's sport like how it is in the NBA because the NBA has all these endorsements and sponsorships and advertisement dollars compared to the WNBA. It's almost the same. It's the same thing. Cause what the WNBA is finna start up now. What had they started May? Is it May 16th, the first regular
Hmm.
season game? And
Hmm.
the NBA be done. So it's almost there, that gap in between basketball. So yes, they don't play a complete 82 games. I think they play what 3 months. But yeah,
Hmm.
Now it's about 4 or 5 months. So yes, I still think though it still should be more investment in it. But
Right.
if you had the switch, the click, and say to push the button, what would you do to help and increase the awareness or the money being poured into women's sport? If you had the, I said the switch or the push of the button to do it.
Oh wow, what would I do? That's tough. I think it definitely. I don't. It's kind of hard to say because I think the awareness is there now. You know, people are
Yeah,
talking about it more and more now, and I don't. It's not a whole lot of people that agree with the gap being so large. I think so many people now they are aware and they agree that something should be done about it. But I guess that's the $1 million question. What is it that we can do about it? If there is something that I'm able to do, I would love to know what that something is.
what do you think about potential expansion? Because what they have is it 18 teams now in the
Well,
WNBA?
that would definitely help, but I'm not. That would help in terms of, having more availability of more available spots. Because right
Uh,
now we have like some really, really, really good players getting waived. A lot of
yeah,
people that does not deserve. They don't deserve to get waived. They're having to be waived because of that funding and because of the limited spots. But if you increase the spots, I don't know what that does to the money. You know,
like I said,
Maybe
they need
that
to
amount of
pour more
money
into
now
it.
has to be spread out and it goes down.
Yeah, that could also, or they, like I said, they can go ahead and pour more money into it because I think it is a good source of entertainment because that's what I say professional sports is now, and I have to constantly pour into my young men that's on the basketball court. Do not do what the NBA players do right now because it's all entertainment. The Euro, they take 3 steps now, and you take 3 steps in high school basketball, they're gonna call traveling, and then they're gonna look at me like, "Coach, what did I do?" Yes, you travel. Oh, LeBron James did that. You're not LeBron, so you can't do what he do right now. Now, in reference to the expansion, would you like to see an expansion team come to the Mississippi area, a
Oh
WNBA
yes,
team?
definitely, definitely.
Now,
Why not?
we had a couple of women professional teams here. The
Mississippi
Lady Lake,
Lakers.
yeah, the
Yeah.
Lakers. Who else? Gosh, she has one that I'm looking at her face, but I can't think of team. I know the men's team are the Raptors. I can't remember
I don't
what she
know, but I
do.
know Asia Wilson was at one
Yeah,
point.
Asia. Yeah. That's it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
Asia
that's what I'm
Wilson.
talking about
Yes.
her. She has one, but I know the male team was the Raptors, but I can't think of the females.
Yeah, I don't know what the name of the team that she started, but yeah,
Yeah, and I
I know
think
what I know who you're talking about. So,
then our Lisa, Coach Lisa, she has the Phoenix,
oh yes, yes, Alisa
and
Thomas.
so yeah, so it's been quite a few, and they've had some good players to come out to
Hmm.
because I seen a lot of the game. Actually, I did the streaming for the Lakers and was working with Elisa with her team also.
Okay.
So, what do you think about we getting an investment? We go ahead and putting together try to get an expansion WNBA team.
Well, I think there's a lot we need to consider. For one, it would be, I mean, more than amazing to have a WNBA
Yeah,
team here, but I guess we just have to wonder, ask ourselves, would it make sense? Because we would want it to come here and be able to thrive, you know.
yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, that would be amazing. As long as we, figure all the logistics of it out.
Well, but before that happened, it all this stuff definitely has to plan to place like what location,
Mm-hmm.
would the city be behind it, would the state be behind it? I know that then what depends on where it's located, will they be behind it? But you want a big market in. It's kind of hard to find a market here in Mississippi right now because it's constantly changing.
Right.
Now, with you coaching, especially coaching at the high school level, how do you feel about your players playing other sports, especially when he's at Heidelberg? Because I know you had to share student
Mm-hmm.
athletes with other teams.
Well, it's kind of a give and take type thing because some of the best athletes in the world were multiple
Yeah.
sport players, and so you don't want to take that from a kid.
Yeah.
My take on it would be whether or not the kid is serious about the sport. And I
Uh-huh.
give you a specific example, like a real life situation. Sometimes you may have a kid that let's just say if you have your basketball program and you're gonna do some spring training and some off season stuff. If that kid wants to go join another sport only to get away from the work that you're going to put them through, I think that's a problem. But if that kid legitimately just wants to go and take their shot at another sport, then I don't think anything is wrong with that. And it sounds like well, how would you know? When you have relationships with kids, sometimes you do know. Because I've had players like that, and I'll tell them, no. You know, if you're not going to take that sport serious, you're going to not come to basketball workouts, in the spring because you're going to go run track, right? Fine, cool, that's great. But if I pop up at track practice 4 days out the week and you're not there, like what are you really doing? And I talk to the track coach and you've only been to 2 practices, but you're telling me, you're at
Yeah,
track
track.
practice. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it just depends on what the kid because you can't, it happens. Sometimes kids just try to get out of it, and it's kind of hard to police that, but I'm ultimately not against it. I think female sports are a little bit different from male sports because you have football and basketball. They kind of collide a little bit, but
Yeah.
with female sports, you have volleyball and basketball, and a lot of times the practices they don't overlap. So I personally haven't had a problem with athletes playing multiple sports. I haven't had the same issue that maybe on the boys side, having to deal with football. And even then, like I said, it's give and take because you don't want to take that from a kid, but you also have your program that you have to prepare for because seasons are won in the off season.
Off season. Yeah. And I stress that a whole lot. So I tell guys, championships are won in off season, not during the season. They won
Hmm.
in off season by all the hard work that you put in and to leading up to that season. Now, in reference to sports and today's youth, like I said, and sometimes some of your best athletes are just still walking around campus and not playing, participating in sport. What do you think that we're losing in some interest in the youth being involved in some type of extracurricular activity?
Maybe the answer is in the old fashioned PE classes.
What are those?
Just general PE, general PE back when I was in school, you and I were in school, they had a curriculum. And I mean, and a lot of times the coaches were the PE teachers,
Yeah,
you know. And so if you're a PE teacher and you recognize that this kid, during the weeks that you guys are working on basketball or whatever sport it is, you notice the athleticism in this kid at an early age, you should start pulling that kid in, having those conversations with that kid, having those conversations with those parents.
yeah, and I know, like I know, I studied physical education in college. My teacher, one of my teachers, I always told her the 3 R's. Don't be the 3 R. Read, roll, and relax. She said, don't check the roll. Don't roll the ball. I mean, rolling a ball out there and sit back and relax. So you have
Right.
to be more active and creative, and that's how I can say some. Not trying to knock all the PTs out, but that's how some of them are now. They just
A
throw
lot
a
of
ball
them.
out there and not being involved in what's going on,
Right.
teaching different sports. And I know when I was teaching it, my teacher, well, this one a few years ago, my teacher told us we had to come up with a curriculum. We couldn't just tell them to play basketball. We couldn't just tell them to stick to one sport. We had to do volleyball. We had to do football. We had to do different sports, and we had to have a curriculum for it. And we
Well,
had the test for it.
you know how the state provides a curriculum for like your English and
Yes,
math classes.
yes.
They actually provide one for PE too.
Yeah, I was it. I had some help with my curriculum. One of my teachers, we collaborated together. We had a collective lesson plan. So we did try to keep
Right.
everything together. So, but we had our classes, but we did things together. And so
Right.
that type of PE is gone. And like you said,
Hmm.
doing that can really show those particular students that what type of athletic ability that they have, because you probably got a basketball player in your class, then you see him playing volleyball. It's like, man, this young man can play volleyball or playing tennis. Like, wow, you got good feet work for a tennis player,
Hmm.
but he's not playing. And so that's how you find, like I said, those hidden gems. But now some schools they're taking that away, just like they took home ec and shop away.
Hmm.
I remember those days and going to class and cooking and getting oil staining stuff on your hands from in wood shop.
Yeah, right.
But what is something that we can definitely do to get the youth involved into extracurricular activities now? Not everybody is a player. Not everybody is athletic enough. There are some individuals that are smart enough to be coaches, but they just say, "Hey, well, I didn't play sports, so I don't want to coach." What is something that we can do to get the youth involved back in extracurricular activity, such as sports, such as band, such as the glee club, such as the drama club or debate club, things along that line?
Um, I think one of the things we can do is just provide it at an earlier age. One of the things that we were fortunate enough to do at Meridian is we were able. I can't remember. I think it was like we may have had six elementary schools, and so we were able, because we had so many, they can't at that age, elementary, they can't compete in MHS, a
The
events.
sports, yeah.
But we have six schools. So what we were able to do was start a youth league, it was a fourth and fifth grade basketball league
Okay.
that we were able to start. Yes, so we created four teams from each school, two little girls teams and two little boys teams, and we actually hired coaches. Paid them a little bit of money, maybe a couple of $100, and the season only lasted like 2 months. I want to say the first month you would spend practicing with them, and then the second month, you would both practice and play. Their season would last about a good month, and when I tell you, the parents absolutely loved it. We didn't even charge admission, and we hosted the games at our high school. And those kids, I mean, it was amazing. It was amazing to have those. And they played, I think, every Wednesday. And I think if we do more things like that, not just for basketball, but all sports. And you're talking about what, 10-year-olds,
Uh huh.
that's on an organized sports team, and it doesn't take up a lot of the time. It's only for about a good 2 months. And it's staggered with actual basketball season. I think our season may have been August and September for
Okay.
the little
And and
leagues.
and in reference to that, what's your thought on how AAU is kind of AAU basketball compared to your high school basketball now? I know some people have it's a mixed feelings about it. I think in my personal, it's again it's mixed feeling. I think it depends on who the AAU coach is, what you're teaching those players. Are you teaching them basketball or is it just chauvinist basketball?
Right,
And
because
and,
you
and
do
it's a
have a lot
different.
of that now.
And so
Yes,
it,
you do
it is
have
a
a lot of
different.
that.
And yeah, and with that, because of once you gotta create an all-star team to go in and travel around. Yes, it is exposing the student athlete, but then once it come back to actual playing on that team, look like this is not how we play. But this is how my coach told me, hey, you to do it. And so you got to beat down that mindset of this is not AAU right now. You back in basketball. What's your
Mhm.
thought about the A? How do you feel about AAU basketball?
Well, for one, I think as much basketball a kid can play, I think the better. Um, as long as they're still able to get the training in. They shouldn't be playing more than they're practicing. You know, but it's a little bit different because I'm certainly not against AAU. I absolutely love it. I love the platform. I love what it brings to the table, and the opportunities that it provides to our players. Sometimes it can kind of get a little bit too much in terms of funding. I've seen parents almost go broke, because they feel that, sometimes they feel less than a parent, when they're not able to, afford to put their child on that platform,
Uh-huh.
but I think in terms of choosing AAU, it just depends on the child's or the players reason for playing AAU. And what I mean by that is sometimes, players play AAU for exposure, and if that's what you're playing for, then you need to find a team that's going to expose you. But then you have some players playing AAU because they need some extra playing time. They need some extra playing reps, to get better.
Uh-huh.
Well, some of those players are not ready to showcase those talents because, they're not good enough yet. And if you put those type of players on that stage, then they may end up hurting themselves more than helping themselves because coaches are watching. So if you're playing for that, then I wouldn't advise you to go out on that particular court. Maybe you need to be over on the other courts, or maybe at the
Okay.
smaller tournaments or something like that. But yeah, so it just boils down to why you're playing. I think you need to choose a team that matches your why.
Yeah, and like I said, I know a lot of AAU coaches. Well, I'm not gonna say AAU coaches. A lot of coaches that work with AAU players and AAU teams. Like I said, there are some good coaches. Like I said, it depends. It
Yeah,
depends on who that coach is, who is running
yeah.
that program, because I know that they're gonna get the basketball teaching,
And
not just
some of
going
them
up there
do
and saying,
player development,
"Yeah,
and everything. Some of them, I've been to some AAU practices or workouts, and it's amazing. Like they're actually teaching basketball. They're teaching the right things. But
yeah,
you are absolutely right. There are some AAU coaches that they're just doing it for their own personal, clout, and it's not really for the player, and I think it's always smart for parents and players to recognize that, and that you may not want to waste your time with some people, but there are definitely some really good AAU coaches with some really good intentions.
yeah." Now, speaking of development, I know that you're doing something right now, just because I just got a message on one of my social media profiles in
Hmm.
reference to this virtual training that you have going on.
Hmm.
Tell us about the virtual training.
Okay, so from my experiences, and I get really excited when I'm
I
talking
see
about this,
that.
but from my experiences, I've coached some really, really good players. And I have found that a lot of times, you have gym rats, right? They
Yes.
stay in the gym, but there are a lot of complaints. Like, I get calls all the time. Hey, coach, can you send me a workout? Like I want to go to the gym, but I don't know what to do. I don't know, they don't have workouts. They want to put the work in. And so a lot of times they go to the gym and they just get shots up, because they really don't know what I know. Even if they'll say, well, I need to work on my ball handling. What does that mean exactly? Because that can mean a number of things. Like, what parts of your ball handle, like what is the issue. And a lot of times, players just don't know what to do. I mean, it's good if they have a personal trainer, when they're going to go in and they're going to work out with their trainer, but a lot of times, players can go in the gym by themselves,
Yeah.
or even when they go with a personal training. I think when you go to the gym, there needs to be a plan. Otherwise, you're just in the gym. You know what I'm saying? And you're
Yeah.
not going to get any results from that. So I devised this program that stems from Coach Faulkner, the brand, and it has a guard developmental section and a post developmental section, and those are actually basketball courses, not just online training. It's not just virtual training. It's actually an online course. It's more so of a course, and
Okay.
it kind of helps those players that they're gym rats. They work out all the time, but then they may not see the results in the games. So I mean, it's a very strategic plan. I mean, I really want to show it to you, just so
Yeah.
you can see it. But I can't give it away like that. But it's definitely something that's going to be groundbreaking. Once everybody just kind of dive into it, it's going to be groundbreaking.
Yeah, and I know I'm gonna flash up the website, coachfaulkner.com. I know I went on there, like I said,
Mhm.
you sent that little clip to me about the different workout. I think sometimes like it is needed because, again, some players think about basketball is just about scoring. That's not
Right.
about. It's not all about scoring. some of the great players, they're a whole player. Some of the great shooters are not just shooters, but you can see somebody that shoot it. Well, I need you to go in and shoot this shot, and then I'm gonna pull you back out because you're not a good defensive player. And it's like, coach,
Right.
you coach it. All right, go sub it. Like you said, I saw you playing time. Go sub you in. You get in, make a shot. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Then coach pulling back out. Why? Coach just made a shot. But like I said,
Yeah.
they're not the
And you
whole
just gave
player
up one too,
that you
right?
need. Yeah. So now I need you on defense end too, instead of down on the offense end. But if
Right.
you like more information, or go log on to a website, coachfaulkner.com. Is there any other way that they can contact you, to learn about the virtual training that you have going on?
Yes, they can find me on social media. My email is Coach D Faulkner at yahoo.com, Denisha Faulkner at gmail.com. But CoachFaulkner.com, you go on, there's a virtual course section there, and it gives you all the information. If you have any questions from there, there's a link to my email. Feel free to shoot me an email with any questions.
Now, Coach, before we get ahead, well, first and foremost, I want to thank you for your time, talking about basketball and about your time in Heidelberg. And the first time we met when you was on the court, I know you probably looking like, I'm not talking to nobody. I'm finna go celebrate, so I can go home. But again, I want to thank you for your time, and also accepting the request to come out and talk about what you do, and how great of an impact that you make. Is there anything else that you would like to share?
And no, I thank you so much for having me on. This was so much fun. I love doing things like this. So hopefully you invite me back one day.
No,
But
you're more than welcome. But now I'm gonna say this. Now my show is called More on the Road, so I do travel. So I'm probably going to
okay,
come to where you are one day, and we're gonna sit down and interview and chat, and then you can probably
there you
give
go.
some live demonstration.
There you go.
So now
There
the
you go.
people that y'all heard this people now. So she said that she's gonna be a guest. Now if I email her, give her a call, and she say, nah, like baseball, three strikes you out now.
Oh
And
no.
so if she turned me down three times, if she turned me down one, I'm gonna tell you about it though. But I know that she's not, because she's very receptive and humble enough to come on and join us today. But coach,
Oh yes.
again, I really do appreciate your time, and yes, you will be a guest again. Like I said, next time we're gonna be live, because I want you to send me a demonstration of your virtual training. But now see,
Okay.
I'm an old school basketball player. I'm not with all of this, but this crossover stuff, this all
Oh
Euro
no.
step. Nah, I'm just
Oh
gonna
no.
shoot it and take it to the basket. If I got to
Yeah.
step on you, I'm taking that step. If I can't get there, I'm passing it and try to find somebody else to shoot it.
Right. Right.
But coach, again, I really do appreciate your time. Though, hey, wish you well though on anything. If anything that I can do with us and with more on the world, more sports match, you definitely let us know.
Thank you so much more.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
thank you for having me.
You're so very welcome, Coach. Again, that was Coach Faulkner, Coach Daisha Faulkner with CoachFaulkner.com. You see her website. You can definitely go on and find more information. CoachFaulkner.com to learn about more about what she can do, your virtual training, and how she can be a helpful hand to you. But now, it's time for us to get out of here. We got to go out and enjoy some fun. Thank you guys for tuning in to More on the Road. But as always, I always say when we get out here, much love to you guys. Love, peace, and soul greets all that good stuff. You know how we go. Much love.